This is the view from 40 kilometers above Dehradun, looking north. The Great Himalaya Range can be seen in the upper right, skirting the northern reaches of the Great Bhagirathi river system, the source of the holy Ganga. The range here is the watershed between India and Tibet, with the Ganga itself rising in a range with 7,000-meter high peaks, forming a geographically complicated river basin system. As the Great Himalaya heads north towards the Shipkila and the Sutlej, it bifurcates into two well-defined subsidiary ranges. One of these forms the southern flank of the valley of the Baspa River, whereas the Great Himalaya itself forms the northern bastion of the Baspa Valley. Further ahead, running through gorges of ever-increasing depth, most of them impassable, the Sutlej makes its thrust for the sea. South of this wondrous maze of mountains arises the legendary Yamuna. Although to present-day residents of Delhi this may seem more myth than fact. Strangely, there are no glaciers at the actual source of the stream, only ice fields and snow beds, making the Yamuna a remarkable example of a river rising as a spring in high alpine meadows. Of course, to the east, the Bandhapunch West Glacier does, however, contribute to the source stream. This, all around me, is the birthing ground of the Yamuna. According to legend, she is daughter of Surya, the sun, sister to Yama, god of death. As a result, popular belief has it that those who bathe in the waters of its source stream are never tormented by the fear of death. From Yamunotri, the source, the river meanders down through an enchanted landscape amidst grassy alp and pine forest. And in these upper reaches, the main valley is overlooked by numerous hanging valleys, as they are called, carved during the last ice age. The entire geomorphology of the valley has been influenced by the passage of the river. The forceful waters, result of a steep gradient, have carved deep rock benches and narrow gorges. Lower down, as the river loses steam, interlocking spurs are the main features. It is the magnificent forests of the upper Yamuna Valley that cast a spell on you. Oak, deodar, spruce and pine line some of the most marvelous walks in the entire western Himalayas. Beyond the right bank of the Yamuna, the Himalaya and its lesser ranges break down into a series of high ridges. Immediately to the north of the upper reaches lies the arc-like valley of the Tons, a major tributary. To the southwest lie the Rupin and the Babar valleys, rivers that flow from along the southern flank of the Baspa, and with the addition of all these waters, the Yamuna becomes a mighty stream. Lower down, the Yamuna cuts across the Mussoorie Ridge, and then, after another gorge near Paonta Sahib, it enters the plains. The people of the Yamuna basin, on both sides of the river, are a perfect example of the mingling of cultures and ethnic groups. We'll be having a closer look at them in today's People Watch. The upper catchments of the Yamuna are a haven for wildlife and avifauna. The presence of a large number of raptors, carnivorous birds of prey, indicate that the environment is still relatively undisturbed. For raptors, being on top of the food chain are good environmental indicators. A decline in their numbers usually paralleling a decline in the quality of the environment. Facilities for the average traveler in the Yamuna Valley are about the most austere and basic that would be accepted by the average pilgrim rather than the average tourist. But what is really peculiar for us is sitting here by lamplight, because we've just spent days struggling to get around wires and cables and lampposts to get views of these mountains. It's all there, it's all on paper, the wires are there, but apparently, as far as the local people are concerned, there's no electricity. It's just one of those facilities that mean nothing to the people for whom it's meant. On the right side of the Yamuna basin is the Mussoorie Spur, along which lies the hill station of Mussoorie. Here, the days are long gone when lovely cottages and bungalows lay nestled amongst rich forested slopes. Now, building societies, housing societies, condos, co-ops and the like, not to mention a rash of hotel building, are pushing construction activity further along the ridge towards the northeast. And the forested slopes are rapidly becoming almost entirely a thing of the past. Whatever margin the environment had is being ruthlessly wiped out by large-scale limestone quarrying. The resultant damage is hard to quantify, accruing as it does over generations, but the scars on the mountainsides are there for all to see. Public outcry in the past resulted in the closure of these cement factories, but not in the mining for limestone, which is simply trucked out to factories further away. The movement of the trucks carrying the limestone down takes place on a near 24-hour basis on the Mussoorie-Dehradun highway. Beyond the Mussoorie spur lies the inner valley of the Yamuna, where extensive forests still straddle the ridges. The main river valley is now, however, under stress due to incursion of limestone mining activities as well as the extension of the road network. Removal of the forest cover creates ideal breeding ground for devastating landslides. Slopes become eroded and fragile, and eventually large sections of the road network become landslide prone, especially in the rains. Primitive infrastructure to accommodate the expanding pilgrim hordes leads to further despoilation along the very source of the river. This is one of the last villages along the trail to Yamunotri. It's called Doordarshan, and it's a village with a view. Over to the east, you can see a couple of more villages with these snow-capped hills. But to the north, that's Yamunotri, headwaters of the Yamuna, overlooked by high snowy peaks, including there, Bandapunch. By the middle of December, the winter snows start advancing down the slopes towards the villages. By now, however, the village is well into its winter mode, and Doordarshan offers an excellent opportunity for a look at a high Himalayan village in winter. Activities now revolve around the home and hearth. With the pilgrim season and harvest long since gone, the men don't have much to do except weave, play the flute, or join in a game of cards in the village square. Food and other supplies to last through the snowbound months are stored in these box-like structures, like little huts on stilts, for protection from mice and other pests. The old cook or care for the young, and the whole village seems to be enjoying the lazy days in the bright winter sunshine. But the women, as always, are out about their old onerous routines. Increasing populations mean the forests have receded from the villages, and these women take a well-deserved break in their long trudge back to the village in the evening. Mahasu Devta, also worshipped in parts of Kinnaur, is the reigning deity here. These people migrated to Garhwal from the western parts, mainly the Satluj and the Baspa valleys, and have maintained their distinct identity. Shaivism and the Shakti cult form the bedrock foundations of the religious beliefs of the people in these parts. There have, of course, been overlays of Buddhism and other trans-Himalayan influences too. as seen from the numbers of raptors winging the high wind. The environmental balance of the upper Yamuna reaches is still pretty good. As such, one can expect to see a variety of rare and common wildlife. This is Selinactus tibetanus, the black Himalayan bear. Omnivorous, voracious, and razor sharp in his reactions, his teeth and his claws. And this is a kakar, known as the barking deer, for the manner and sound with which he alerts the entire forest at the slightest sign of any danger. Near Paonta Sahib, the Yamuna enters the plains, and the area, with barrages and the like, is a wintering ground for many aquatic bird species. A regular inhabitant of these parts, and one we saw frequently throughout the valley, is the pied kingfisher, whose chief characteristic is a spectacular method of fishing. It hovers stationary for considerable periods of time, 30 feet or so above the water, literally standing on its tail, and then hurls itself, wings pulled in at the sides, at fish coming up within striking depth. This one's eye seems to be out, or perhaps it's his luck which is out. But repeat duckings are of no avail, and he was still breakfastless the last we saw of him. The white-breasted dipper stays close to the mountain torrents it loves. The fate of the Yamuna in the plains is well known, but here in the further reaches of the Yamuna valley, the balance between man and nature still exists. How long this will be so, in the face of the creeping urbanization in the lower catchment area, is impossible to say.